Hi everybody, happy Pride Month and welcome back to Lookouts. I've been running into some unfortunate technical issues. So the first video turned out fine, but I couldn't help but notice that the second video was a little bit chuggy in some parts. I think I've narrowed down what the issue is. See, Lookouts was developed in Unity, unlike most visual novels, which are usually developed in Ren'Py, which is a bespoke visual novel developing program. Ren'Py, I'm pretty sure, runs at 30 FPS natively, whereas Unity runs at like 60, and I was recording these videos at 30, so I think that's what might be causing the choppiness. Unfortunately, I tried recording this next video at 60, and it just made the choppiness worse, so I don't know if my recording settings are just not set up properly, or if my laptop just can't handle recording anything in 60. I don't know. So to compromise, I've slowed down the text speed a little bit so that it's not quite as noticeable. It's not ideal, but I do want to keep sharing this story with y'all. So if you want to experience Lookouts but running more smoothly, then I highly encourage you to go buy it and read it yourself. It's really good. Anyway, enough talking shop, let's get back to the story. There might be a meeting we can drop in on at the town hall. Seems worth a look. Sounds good to me. I wouldn't mind sitting down a spell, neither. You both start walking to the outskirts of the town, weaving between the clumps of houses and down the dirt banks. You keep walking on a flat stretch, smooth and compacted from the frequent travels of people. Some townsfolk on their porches wave at you or give a little "afternoon" as you pass on by. Is it just me, or does it feel like everyone here is nicer than most? Well, maybe, but I ain't complaining. He gives an enthusiastic wave to a small kid shyly hanging around outside their house, under the shade. I could get used to folk being nice to me. They not usually? I mean, I don't stray far from the gang a lot of the time. Maybe this is normal. Yeah, I suppose I wouldn't know either. You arrive at the large wooden building you'd been heading towards, noting how similar to a chapel it looked. Joseph walks up the small steps and opens the door with a rattle, holding it open for you. Thank you kindly. He follows you into the short, darkened hallway, closing the door behind him with another wooden rattle. The meeting hall is fairly large, and simple, and bright. The wood walls are varnished, and gleaming from the ample sunlight filtering through the arched windows. Rows of benches line the aisle, half facing away and half facing toward you on each side. Sitting on a nearby bench turned away from you is a hunched figure in black. Hearing you come in, the figure jumps to life, rising from the seat. They turn to you both, revealing themselves to be an elderly tortoise, holding a small book in one hand. Ah, do my eyes deceive me, or do I see new visitors to our town? He walks with the characteristic slowness of someone his age and nature down the aisle towards you both, but with a sprightly spring to his step. He tucks the book under one arm and extends both his hands to shake hands with Joseph, and then you. Welcome to Clemency, and to our meeting hall. I am Jacob. What might your names be? I'm Joseph, and this here is my associate, Robin. Pleasure to meet you. I assure you, the pleasure is all mine. It has been a good while since we had fresh faces around here. No, you'll have to excuse me, but I have some business to attend to quickly. Feel free to sit and pray here until I return if you so wish. Before you can ask any more questions, he shuffles between you both and out the door. You and Joseph look at each other quizzically, sitting down on the nearest bench together. What did he say? Sit and pray here? That's what I heard too. Is this a meeting hall for prayer? The meeting house of God? I don't get it. You can't help but smile at his musings as he looks around the room, looking into the rafters of the ceiling, before turning back to you. You lock eyes with him, staring into the honey gold and brown streaked rings of his keen gaze. He smiles at you coyly and looks away, readjusting in his seat. you realize you were holding your breath. You sit up on the bench more, too. The hard wood at your back reminds you of church days. All the fuss and protest against your mother about your Sunday best. You don't miss the frills and laces at all. You do miss singing hymns with her. She had a beautiful voice. I don't remember the last time I prayed. Don't cross my mind very much. Can't say you're missing anything. All the good at it, do ya? Not a believer? I don't want to blaspheme, but God's done a whole lot of jack squat to help me all my life. Don't really feel like praying to someone who doesn't care about me, or anyone like me for that matter. Which is why I wouldn't have pegged you for a devout man. Joseph laughed a bit, almost mocking the idea. No, I don't think anyone could accuse me of that. Not with some of the things I've done. But I'll still pray. Only the Lord knows if He's listening, but it helps remind me what's important to me. A lot of the time, I'll just pray for family. Hope they're doing fine. I hope they are too. There was a momentary silence between you, like the subtle shift of coals in a long burning fire, now snuffed by the door rattling open again. You looked behind you, and sure enough, it was Jacob shuffling in. He grabbed a broom and briefly swept some dust he'd tracked in back outside, before closing the door with another rattle. Forgive me for the delay. I hope I haven't kept you two from your business. Don't worry yourself, we're doing just fine here. He leaned into and nudged you playfully. Good. So, how may I help you, gentlemen? The word catches you off guard a little, the way it trips off his tongue so easily. No bitterness or mockery. Joseph seems to stall for a moment before a little wry smile returns to his face. He adjusted in his seat to turn to Jacob, who had now taken a seat facing you on another bench. Well, we're just passing through, but I'm curious, you mentioned something about prayer? Well, yes, of course. You must forgive me, I'm clearly far too used to the usuals of the town. His slow drawl of words is comforting, like being told a long-worn story by a grandparent. This is a meeting hall for friends, Quakers, if you will. We're a largely Quaker community here in Clemency. Quakers. Oh yeah, there's a lot of you folks over in Pennsylvania and the likes, ain't there? Yes, indeed that's true. In fact, that is where I hail from. But I must admit, it has been a long time since I last visited. Sorry, I've got to say I'm at sea here. I've never even heard of Quakers. I can't say I'm much more enlightened myself. I don't know nothing about them. You both turned to Jacob expectantly. Well, what's the simplest way I can explain our beliefs? He fell into deep thought for a few moments, eyes staring into the middle distance, before coming back to life. We believe that there is that of God in everyone, that we all have an inner light that guides us. We don't perform sermons or sing hymns, instead we pray in silence together. There are no guidelines as to what you should do, other than try to connect and listen to the light within yourself. We also very strongly believe in pacifism and do what we can to promote peace, denouncing all forms of violence and the degradation of our fellows who walk the earth with us. It's important to respect the light of God within everyone. That's certainly how I see it. That sounds nice, but, well, things don't often work that way, in my experience. Jacob smiled wisely, likely having heard the same sentiment many times before. Yes, there's certainly some that adhere to it more than others in town here, but it's always been an important tenet of our community. So everyone in this town are Quakers? Well, yes and no. Many of us are, but some of us more so just adhere to the same principles and ideals of nonviolence and so forth. Quakerism isn't enforced, but it bonds this community. Huh, interesting. What about old Sheriff? What about Sheriff? With the pacifism and whatnot. Doesn't seem like it'd be easy. Oh, well, yes, I can see how you might suppose that. Sheriff cares about keeping the peace, but isn't solely responsible for it. We all are. It's what made this town so easy to keep going. Me and Sheriff see eye to eye on many things. So you and Sheriff have been here a while then? Did you found the place or something? You'd have believed it by the tortoise's age. He could definitely be as old as this town. No, you flatter me, for I am not quite that pioneering, but I have indeed been here for a long time. If you'd indulge me, I could tell you a little of my story. Please do. Jacob nodded, again drifting off into thought for a moment before coming back with his words. I love Robin's politely taking off his hat sprite. It's so cute. Anyway. As I said, I'm from Pennsylvania. During the height of the gold rush, with so many heading west, many Quakers thought it would be a benefit to follow. I was much younger then, much more eager to get on the trail and spread the ideals of the Friends. Although, I can't say my love of blabbing has waned much. He gave a charming and hoarse little laugh at his own jibe. The trail was very hard, but I learned much from others in the caravans and towns and cities on the way. So much life and light. I arrived in this here town maybe more chipper than I had left, but it was not to be. His expression softened, drawing into himself, emotion failing to find its way onto his face. I loathe to speak ill of my fellow man, but when I arrived, this was a godless place. The miners had little care for each other. Be it out of greed or desperation, they were consumed by their need for gold, even those who had had their fill. The whole town was tense and unpredictable. The arguments, even violence, would erupt whenever something valuable turned up. A new vein, gold in the river. They'd do whatever they had to get what they'd wanted. The night I arrived, they told me of the so-called savages that used to reside there. Very little makes my blood boil, I tell you boys what, but the way the miners talked about those Indians, how happily they told me stories about the ways they drove them out. Unspeakable things, things I dare not and would not want to repeat to anyone. I tried explaining the Friends' way, how even the savages, as they called them, had the light of God in them. How we were equally important in the presence of God's light. That the people we share this earth with were not our enemy. They had no care for my explanations. They had no care for the needs or lives of others than themselves. It made me wonder how Quakers' past had convinced people of the evils of slavery, the importance of peace, building bonds instead of destroying one another. I lost hope. I thought maybe things had changed so much, perhaps this was the people's limit. Tolerance of those who could get in their way was no longer an option. Or perhaps I was just a failure, unable to convince a single soul of giving a damn. The old tortoise looked forlorn, brow furrowed, like he was reliving these moments so vividly that these were the same faces he wore. Then along came Sheriff. Oh, Sheriff. I was a little worried when Sheriff was first assigned to the town. Did I just have another person to fight with, someone with authority on the side of the miners? Instead, I found a kindred spirit, someone who actually listened to me and agreed with me on many things. Very quickly, we became firm friends. Eventually, Sheriff got sick of the miners, decided enough was enough, and shut down the town, forced the miners to move elsewhere. The entire time he'd been talking about Sheriff, his face was lively and lit up, his hands moving with his words. It was a lot like how your pastor used to give sermons. Surely there was resistance to a whole mining town being packed up like that? Of course. But Sheriff did what's right. It's the way Sheriff's soul is set. I'd felt buried by the weight of the town's hate, their convictions like stone walls I could not scale. I'll be grateful to God until the day I die that Sheriff came here. I was given so much hope when I'd lost it all. And you've been here ever since? Jacob chuckled. Yes, we have. Only a handful of us stayed after the miners left. and it was hard to know whether this town would still stand. But we felt sure we could find more people who cared, as long as we worked together. More people like us. His words hung in the air, settling around you and Joseph as Jacob settled his gaze on you both. So, those mines are still around? A lot of mining towns died down because of the gold drying up, but if the miners just left, I guess there's some still here. Well, yes, I suppose so. I can't say I've thought much about it in recent years. We don't encourage those looking for gold, I'm sure you understand. It's nothing but trouble. His warm gaze turned somewhat steely. You weren't sure how long it might go on for if Joseph didn't pipe up. Course, Jacob, we're just a curious bunch. Thank you for talking with a stranger so long. His stern eyes disappeared in an instant, and he humbly waved away Joseph's thanks. No, the pleasure's all mine. It's been good to talk to new ears. If you'll excuse me now, I must get this place tidied up before today's meeting. Quaker meeting? Yes, indeed. You're both welcome to join us if you'd like. Thank you, Jacob, but I'm thinking we'll be off anyhow. You all stand, stretching and shaking off the stiffness from wings and tails and legs. Go well, and keep the light close to you. You both nod, and leave through the same rattling door as before, catching one last glance at Jacob starting his chores before you close it. Joseph stands with you for a moment in the porch of the meeting hall, looking off into the town. What you thinking? Well, we know now that these folks ain't gonna put up much of a fight. Maybe some of them, but... And there's definitely gold here. Somewhere. Joseph had no real emotions playing across his face, but he was standing much more still than you had seen him before. Like he was trying not to breathe. Come on, we've got more people to talk to. He exhaled sharply, the feathers on his beak next to his nose holes fluttering. Yeah. You walked past the houses and people like before, but didn't feel like waving back. We'll pick up from here next time. I'll see y'all then. Thanks for watching.